Shelley here is using a traditional style called the ode. The ode is where it's normally an elevated form of discussion or thought about an issue where you directly normally address an object or a person. And this direct address is a sort of an invocation of the person. And here he's addressing the west wind. The west wind was traditionally the wind that would bring good fortune, it would bring revivification, bring new life to things. The style that he uses is a rhyme scheme, first off, of A, B, A, B, C, B, so on and so forth, where the middle line rhymes with the first and third line of the next stanza. So if you notice in the first stanza, we've got being, dead, and fleeing. And then in the next stanza, we have red, which rhymes with dead, thou, and bed. And that carries on in the next. Thou rhymes halfway with low and blow, and so on and so forth, until we get to the end, which is a couplet, everywhere and here. This ends up creating a structure that's known as tertia rima. Tertia rima is where, again, those first two lines are rhymed, or the first and third line are rhymed, and the middle line then rhymes with the first and third of the next stanza. He's writing an iambic pentameter for this ode, and he's addressing the west wind. In the course of the poem, he is saying to the west wind, addressing it in different attitudes, you are a creator and you're a destroyer. You bring about the spring, and you bring about also the fall, the birth of man and the death of man. And he asks the wind to hear him, to hear his voice. This traditionally is a way of addressing the wild spirit, as he calls it. The Jewish, for instance, idea is that God breathes life into man, that life is infused into man as a spirit of God. And here Shelley takes a similar idea, asking the spirit of the west wind to infuse life into him, to take his dead or lethargic or sluggish spirit and bring it out of its torpor, to bring it, for instance, to the zenith's height, to waft it as though it were a storm bringing about new life to the earth, to, for instance, raise the dome of the vast sepulchre, the tomb of his own world, and to breathe life into it, to revivify it. He is in a state now where he is, he feels dead, he feels lethargic, and he's invoking the west wind, for instance, that has this history that has blown, for instance, across the Mediterranean, or has blown the air across Baez Bay, to breathe into him new life as well as a poet. And part of the reason he wants this done is that he wants his words to be cast throughout the world to other people. He wants to be somebody who his words are carried everywhere. But it can't happen as long as he's lethargic. So, for instance, in the fourth stanza he says, if I were a dead leaf, you'd bear me away, or if I were a swift cloud, you'd fly through the air. So he says, you are uncontrollable. Make me as though I were in my boyhood. Revivify me. Make me young again. Because right now, I'm in sore need. He says, I have fallen upon the thorns of life, and therefore I bleed because of this. And if once you revivify me, you will make me your own lyre, your spirit. I will proclaim the greatness of you and all of nature. People will listen to my words, and they'll make me into a poet, and I'll praise your name. One thing to note on this is that Shelley's a great poet, and he's recognized as a great poet in the West. But honestly, sometimes he seems excessive. He seems as though his own poetry was ungoverned. And I often think that Shelley's way with words, his use of words, is a hit or miss. Some of his poems, he has great use of words. And others, for instance, in this one even, the use of words is almost annoying. He says, I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. Or he says in another part, the die earth. To me, that's an excessive word. And I think that his use of words, although it can be powerful at times, is frequently one which he says in a numerous amount of words. What can be said in much shorter form by, say, somebody like Blake, or like Shakespeare, or even like his good friend Byron. And Byron is much more concise in his word usage. So although we recognize that Shelley has his moments and is a great poet and is certainly one of the men who drove the romantic movement, he nevertheless has a tendency sometimes to go on and on a bit much.